How long have you lived here?
5 years, almost 6.
Really?
Yeah.
Do you like it? You like living here?
Yeah, I do.
It seems like a nice community.
I get along good with the neighbors, and you can depend on them, and it's nice to have just neighbors around you that are friendly.
Yeah. We're talking about the co-op program, and as a tenant, you have a particular interest in the possibility of Northgate going co-op. Can you explain a little bit about why that's important, why that came up for you?
Well, to organize a co-op, it brings the community of the people together and makes them stronger because they know what their rights are, and they learn what the landlord's rights are in organizing a co-op. So they're able to stand up better for themselves. And once a co-op is established and you go about buying the place that you're living in, then you have more control and you don't feel so helpless about rent increases, about evictions, about anything that could happen in the apartment.
So maybe we talk a little bit more about, as a tenant, how do you feel? I mean, you just talked about the sort of powerlessness and isolation. Can you explain a little bit more about, being a tenant in a tight housing market? What's the result of that?
Well, when a landlord raises his rent, you're stuck putting up with it. In Northgate, we have the lowest rent in the city, so if a landlord raises our rent out here, we have to put up with it. We have to tighten our belts and find a way to come up with the money because there's nothing else better out there. Everything is twice as high or 3 times higher than what we're paying. So we don't have much choice. We could try to fight it, but unless you're organized, it doesn't do much good for a scattered few people to argue about this isn't fair.
Now, the possibility or the fact that the lease is expiring on this property has brought up this issue of cooperative ownership. Can you explain more about that?
Well, the lease is a 40-year lease, and at the 20-year mark is a sort of like window. He has the option to prepay his mortgage. When that happens, he'll no longer be under HUD restrictions, which has been keeping our rents down. So the landlord can raise the rent to fair market, which would double and triple our rents, or he could turn them to condos. He literally has the rights by law to do anything he wants to without anyone stopping him.
Except maybe some organized tenants.
Yes, that's where setting up a co-op would come in handy. We could organize and we could maybe as a group be able to get financing. Each one of us going to the banks to get financing to buy our own apartments would be a little risky. Some would make it, some wouldn't, but as a big group, as a co-op and a legal entity, we would have more power and the banks would look at us in a different way in terms of buying and lending money to us.
How many people live here in Northgate, or how many units are there?
There's 336 apartments, and we've estimated about 1,000 to 1,200 people live out here.
Really? And what sort of response have you gotten? I mean, have you initiated some organizing? And what sort of response have you gotten?
Yeah, we did a survey in January to find out what the tenants would like, and over half the tenants would like to stay here. Some would like to buy into a co-op. Some would like to just stay as rental units. So we're looking into the possibility of doing it both ways or combining the two, either way. We're getting more and more organized, and we're gathering more people into helping us do little jobs so that they feel like they've got a little control over what they're doing right now.
So do you have a tenants association right now?
Yes, a tenant association was established about 4 years ago out here, and it mostly did mediation between tenant problems with the landlords, the management out here. And now we're getting a little broader, and we put out newsletters and we set up parties to bring the community closer together. The more times the community sees each other, the more often we can know our neighbors and help each other out. So it's getting stronger, and now that we have the possible threat of losing our homes or having our rents doubled, it gives us something to fight for. So we're getting more and more support each day.
And what sort of help are you getting from outside groups or agencies such as the city, or I guess the land trust is well, but primarily the city has been initiating this process. Is that true?
Yeah, the city has helped us a lot. They've helped us come up with the questions for the surveys. They've helped us with all the printing that we needed. They've helped us gain more organization by telling us how a group like this should be organized and giving us pointers on what our next steps are, what is important, what we could leave out. So the city has helped tremendously, especially CEDO office. And we're gaining some support from some of the other agencies. We've been able to talk with a lot, like Burlington Land Trust. We've sat down and talked with them. We've talked with the Housing and Finance briefly. They've given us an idea of how much it would be to gain this place, what we'd need in equity, what we'd need in cost to run it. You know, we've gained a lot of support from all the agencies around here.
Were you an organizer before any of this came up?
No, just a single mom. And I was secretary-treasurer of the Tenants Association, so I knew about it quite a ways back. And when the president left Northgate because of the fear, she found another place, then I ended up taking over the duties, and it kind of just fell on my shoulders.
So what are the biggest challenges as an organizer? I mean, you're facing a whole new job description, basically.
The biggest challenge is to getting the tenants to help, because for so long people are taught that the owner has all the rights and the tenant doesn't have any. So a lot of tenants are afraid to get into a co-op and organize, because they're afraid once they go to all the trouble of organizing and going to meetings that it's not going to do them any good, because the owners have all the rights. And that's not necessarily true. We just got to keep their optimism up enough so that they'll be willing to fight for it.
So it's a big, sort of like a ongoing pep rally you've got to maintain.
Yeah, you got to keep everyone's spirits up. You got to be realistic. And in being realistic, sometimes your hopes are dashed. But it is a pep rally. We got to keep them up and willing to fight.
So what are realistically the prospects of being able to convert Northgate into a co-op situation?
I think they're pretty good. With the city's backing and with the public's backing, the public doesn't want 1,000 people out looking for new apartments in 2 years. I think a lot of the landlords out there realize that they could make a profit off of it, but it wouldn't do any good with everyone fighting over what little housing there is. So we might even be able to get backing from other agencies eventually when they see that we are organized enough to handle what's coming up.
Mm-hmm. Nat, do you have any questions? Okay. Is there anything else that you want to add that you haven't? You said a lot.
No.
Okay. Great. That's really good.
Thank you.
It's helpful. Thank you. You're one of the few people that answers questions by using the question and answer. Well, one of the people that has helped us is makes it really easy to do this.
For me and you. Look it. Me and you. Look it, me.
Yeah, sort of, as a matter of fact. That's exactly it. Stay right there.